My name is Dani DeVos. I'm 30 years old and I am living with PTSD. One of the most traumatic experiences that I think has contributed to my PTSD actually is from when I was a baby. I was born addicted to drugs and lived with my mom in a drug house, and she would leave me locked in her bedroom to be in a safe place and go to work and then forget about me for days at a time, where I would go without any food or care or any kind of social interaction of any kind. I think that affects me today more so in terms of my ability to have interpersonal relationships. I oftentimes find myself hungry for connection with anybody, more so people that I feel are rejecting me or don't want to have anything to do with me, as opposed to reaching out for those relationships with people who show me love and care for me. I don't tend to nurture those relationships as much. As far as thinking about the things that happened to me as a young child, I don't really relive those events because they were so long ago. As an adult, I find myself rationalizing those things away. That was 25 years ago, 30 years ago, get over it. However, I do notice that when I experience things in my adult life that feel the same, is when I have a very significant emotional response. For example, if a friendship or a relationship ends today in my adult life, I find myself in a very overwhelming struggle where I feel as though I'm going to die because that person has left me, and it causes an immediate emotional reaction where I start shaking and I can't breathe, and I have that overwhelming anxiety, and it turns into a depression of I'm not good enough, I'm gonna die alone, and then the survival part of my psyche decides to perfect and do better, be more, be worthy of love, be worthy of that relationship, because if it's my fault, then I can fix it, which means I'm gonna be okay. Those thoughts absolutely cross my mind when I'm triggered, but they also come into play when I'm not. For example, when I'm sleeping, I'll have, nightmares or just really elaborate dreams of different things, maybe being attacked, or maybe being just abandoned, being alone and having to fight all by myself. A lot of dying, falling to my death kind of nightmares with the same internal feelings of I should do better, be stronger, scream louder, fight more, just be more, be better. It's kind of like the underlying theme of the nightmares. When I first started to think that I might have PTSD, I, of course, got online and looked at all the symptoms and kind of did a little self-diagnosis and went to therapy and brought it up, and they never really confirmed one way or another and just kind of allowed me to think that this was a condition that I might have. And nightmares was one of those symptoms, and I've had them for so many years that I just kind of thought that it was normal. I didn't realize that how many nightmares that I was having and how much my sleep was disturbed specifically was as uncommon as it was. As far as flashbacks go, a lot of the childhood stuff like I had mentioned before, comes up with events today in my adult life. And a lot of new events kind of take place, right? Like, you're not just traumatized in early age. You know, you can be traumatized multiple times throughout life, re-traumatized. And working in the fire service, I'm getting thrown new traumas at me almost daily. And it's not uncommon for me to be driving down the road and get to my destination and forget the whole drive because I got distracted by that one call that I was on, or be driving down the road and see someone standing on the sidewalk and my whole body will be convinced that that person's gonna just jump in front of my car, and my heart will be racing, I'll be breathing fast, and I'll have a plan for how I'm gonna get around this person. And so I kind of just have like these weird like B-roll going of like what's gonna happen next, and always trying to prepare and plan, and like a little bit of hypervigilance comes into play with things kind of like that. So when I experience maybe a trigger, or maybe a flashback, or an event that kind of creates all this body tension and mind clutter, I have kind of two responses typically. I have an ineffective response and I have an effective response. And the ineffective response usually is my default response, my amygdala, my fight or flight response of, oh my gosh, I'm totally screwed. Like, this situation happened, I had a response, something's wrong with me, I need to do better, I need to go to more therapy, I need to read more self-help books. Maybe if I was more fit and I ate better food, maybe I'd have more mental clarity. So I start hustling and trying to fix myself as if I'm broken. Whereas the effective response is a little bit more rationalized, where I stop and take a minute to analyze my body and analyze the feelings that I'm having, and I acknowledge them instead of stuffing them down. I acknowledge those feelings and I try to look for the underlying root cause. Okay, I know this is what I was feeling in my body and in my mind. Where did this come from? What does it mean? And it usually comes back to some kind of shame. I'm not good enough, I don't matter, I'm not safe. And when I realize that shame's telling me a lie, I can more readily maybe send it away, and then move forward, move through whatever it was, as opposed to just stuffing it down in that ineffective side of, oh gosh, this felt terrible, I don't like it, shove it down, don't let anybody see that I'm having a problem. So I have two responses, and I have to fight and work really hard to go to that effective side and be rational and work through the issues. So for my career, I'm a firefighter paramedic. I work for the South Snohomish County Fire Department. I started in the fire service in 2008 as a volunteer and worked my way up over the years. And on the side of that career, I also run a nonprofit support group for first responders, police, fire, EMS, military, all active duty or retired. This support group is just for all like-minded individuals to come together and share their experience, strength, and hope regarding their trauma or any struggles that they're having, be it with gambling or finances or family stuff or work stuff. It just gives us an opportunity to bring to light all that stuff that we typically like to pretend does not bother us. More often than not, I'd say if I identify a trigger, typically because I know I don't want to deal with it, I force myself to deal with it. And with that being said, I have caught myself so many times with those trigger type situations where my immediate response is, I do not want to do this. And this is life, and we're adults, and we don't always have a choice, and a lot of times we have to do it anyway. So when I find myself in that position, I just make sure that I notice that. Okay, I don't want to do this, and I have to, and it's going to be okay. I mean, as far as going back to the place where my original trauma occurred, I don't know that that's even possible, purely because of how long ago it was. And with that being said, I think my triggers take me back there more often than I'd like them to. And then the work that I do in therapy and different things like that, emotionally, I go back there significantly more than I would like to. When people ask me questions about my experience with PTSD, at this point in my life, I get excited because I have done so much work and I have found so many amazing avenues of treatment that I have found to be helpful that I want to share it. And so I get excited to share these stories, and I think, oh, I've done all this work. This is going to be a breeze. And then I start to share my story and I find myself struggling still. And the words might be coming out, but the emotions are all there of sadness, fear, shame, guilt. My body shakes and I can't breathe and my heart races and all those things come back. So every time I think, oh, I've got it under control, I can talk about it, we can do this, it's that much of a reminder of how far I still have to go. And I try really hard to look at it as an opportunity to allow myself to be human and to be vulnerable, which is a huge, huge challenge for me. So my daily life is 100% affected by the trauma that I've experienced. I, at one point in my life, thought, I'm not going to be a victim of my past. And I'm not going to let my past affect my future and dictate my life and fill in the blank. And that's just not exactly reality. Sometimes I'm going to be a victim of my past. And my past is what has turned me into the person that I am today. There's this phrase in my job, it's called recognition prime decision making. We make our decisions in the moment based off of the experiences of our past and all of the training that we've had and so on. And the traumas are what have trained me to survive. So when I make decisions, when I build relationships, friendships, whatever it is, that survivalist mentality is always gonna be there. And so presently I find with every decision I make, because I wanna make more effective decisions than I did in the past, I wanna make rational decisions, not emotional ones. I don't wanna feel like I'm doing things to survive, I wanna do things to live my life. When I'm making decisions, now I try to be very particular about the why behind the decisions. Am I doing this because I feel like I need to do it to survive? Am I staying in this relationship with this man because if he leaves I'm gonna die? Or am I staying in this relationship because I like it, because it's good for me, because it's what I want? So as much as I want to put it all behind me and let it go and never think of it again or any of that, it will always be there. It will always be a part of me and play a big role in the rest of my life. The suffering in my relationships historically with my having PTSD, the suffering has been, I think, mostly on my part. Historically, a majority of the relationships that I allowed myself to have were relatively superficial, and even the relationships that I thought were more, that had more depth or that were maybe a higher quality relationship, I still had this armor up, this shield up, where I didn't let them know everything about me, or I didn't let them know the things that I thought would make them leave, for example. And I missed out on really connecting with these amazing people that I had in my life. And with that being said, all they knew was the person that I allowed them to see. They thought they knew all of the sides of me. They knew who I was. And the truth is, they only knew the person that I wanted them to see. The perfect person, the person that you shouldn't leave, for example. And now, at this point in my life, after a lot of growth and maybe a few steps backwards even, I have made it a much bigger focus to have a more vulnerable and authentic relationship with the people in my life, and practicing putting up boundaries. And it has been incredible for me to see that growth and to live a life like that. And I've been met with some resistance, right? Because the people in my life are getting to know a new Dani. And maybe they're not liking the changes that they're seeing, and that's hard. So definitely some struggles on either side there for sure. Numb is an ongoing, oh my gosh, numb. That is it. That is the last 29 years. Being numb is the first 29 years of my life, was numb. That's what I did. I didn't allow myself to feel anything. My feelings were so messed up that when someone would die, I would laugh. My friends would cry and I would laugh because I didn't know how else to respond. I didn't know how to be sad or to cry. And if I felt something, I needed to fix that. So I would perfect things, I would fix stuff, and I would resume build and just hustle and distract myself with different things so that I didn't have to feel sad or scared or alone. That was my full-time job, was numbing. And that is a challenge that I have even today is, okay, why am I working out 3 times a day? What am I hiding from? What is it that I'm needing so badly to binge Netflix for 12 hours? Like, what am I doing? What am I avoiding? So, it's a goal I have. I don't want to avoid my life. I don't want to numb it. I want to feel it. God gave us this beautiful life, and I want to feel it. So I do different things. I analyze why I'm doing stuff. Is it to numb, or is it because I want to do it? And when I feel feelings, I let myself feel them. I let myself cry. I let myself shake when I talk, because it's okay. Oh my gosh, okay. So the role that PTSD has played in my career, for example, is almost probably like the key reason why I got into the fire service and into EMS. I remember when I decided to do the job, I remember the place that I was at in my life where my life was worthless and meaningless. Like, I had no purpose at all. And I thought, my life might be over, but maybe I can give someone else a second chance at theirs. Like, that was the motivation. And then I decided to get into it, and somebody told me, well, a lot of people told me that I couldn't do the job, and I wasn't good enough, right? And I was like, we're doing this, and put everything into getting that job. And that was my new numbing mechanism, was work. Like, that's what we're gonna do. And hobbies, oh my goodness. Most of my hobbies, I have historically done them by myself. Because if I do things with other people, they have to get to know me, and I have to be, vulnerable and authentic, and they could leave. They could not want me there. I could It's not a job where, like people have to show up and be with you all day. Like people might not want me here. Rejection? Oh, that sounds terrible. So, oh my goodness, absolutely. It's played a role in the things that I do in my life. I force myself now to be more vulnerable, be more authentic, do activities with other people. I play in a softball league, and I have to go and shake hands with people and interact. And I have a service dog that is a huge help with me socializing and getting into conversation about PTSD specifically, and sharing my story, which is challenging and better. Emotions in PTSD are so challenging. In the earlier years, dealing with the emotions, if I had them, I didn't know what they were, I just didn't like them. And maybe it was like the obvious, like anger and sadness, but anything else, I couldn't, put my finger on it. And then you stuff that down long enough, it's all the same. Whatever it is, it's all the same emotion, if any, right? The numbing comes into play. And then I had to start noticing the feelings. Because I didn't have feelings. I just wanted to die. I just didn't want to live anymore because it just sucked. Living sucked. Like, no matter what I tried to do to be the best, to be perfect, to be good enough, to survive the traumas, to keep them from happening again, it wasn't enough. And I got to this point where I was like, I have worked this hard. I have worked as hard as I possibly can. And it sucks. Like, what is the point? I almost killed myself, and thank God that I didn't, because I knew in that moment that I didn't want to die, and I wanted to live my life. So I called for help, and I am so lucky that I got the help that I needed. And in that life or death help, I was forced to, this is like a forced / willingness, right, to address all of the feelings and learn about all of the feelings. And holy cow, who knew how many feelings there were? And the ones that are challenging, right, are the manufactured feelings, the ones we make up, right? Like your friend's grandmother dies, and then the feeling you decide to have is guilt. What? That's not your fault, right? They're made up, and those made up feelings come from, I think, shame. Shame is like the underlying lie that consumes you and just like rots your soul. I'm not good enough. I don't matter. I'm weak. I'm stupid. I'm not safe. I am whatever. They're all lies. The truth is we are good enough. We do matter. We are safe. We are loved. So shame's the guilty guy. You gotta get him. More often than not, I would say that I notice body sensations before I notice that I have a problem. And I think everybody's a little bit different in the way that their body responds to triggers and different things. But for me, knowing my body, like I get a lot of tension in my core. So my stomach tenses up really tight, like the tightest ab contraction I could ever have, and my chest, I feel like it sinks in, and I feel really hollow, like I can't breathe, like my chest is so heavy, and I carry it all here. And I always have. As a child, I went to the hospital for stomach aches because I was so afraid of different things. And you'd think, right, after 30 years of having that kind of tension, you'd be used to it. And to a point I am where I'll finally catch myself really, really tensed up like that and notice. And I'll have been that tense for a couple hours and have not even realized it. And then I'll take a breath and slow down and try and more effectively troubleshoot my way through where that's coming from, identify the emotions, the feelings that go with it. And then, it helps me to identify the issues, the underlying shame voice kind of thing, and where that's coming from, and troubleshoot my way through. But I'll notice that before I'll even notice that something's bothering me, because I'll get back into that kind of numbing kind of mentality at times, maybe being distracted or what have you. So for me, my body sensations and noticing those things and really digging into what they mean for me is huge as far as managing my symptoms. Sleep for me is pretty intermittent in that I have a lot of factors that go into my sleep. For example, working in the fire service, I work 24 hours at a time. Whether my sleep is broken because of me or because I'm having to get up and go on calls, I don't know, right? So it kind of throws you out of your sleep schedule, for example. Because then going from one night where you haven't slept at all, and then you go home for a couple days and sleep for 19 or 20 hours to try and catch up, for me it's challenging to really know, okay, where's my sleep at, until I get kind of those long stints of time off. And that being said, I know how important sleep is for me to be able to function effectively. I'm a 10-hour a night kind of girl. If I don't get that, I'll wake up and not feel good. I'll feel hungover even, so to speak. So sleep is very important for me. I try to manage it the best I can. My nightmares at this point they ebb and flow as opposed to being as constant as they used to be. And when they come up, I try really hard to accept them for what they are and just allow my brain to process whatever it is it needs to process, and then also try to evaluate if I have any triggers or anything going on in my life that I can identify and see if there's anything I can do about it or if there's anything I want to do about it. It's kind of how I try to manage those nightmares if they come up. Concentration is a challenge for me. Even still today, this is one thing that I don't exactly know how to get a handle on. My short-term memory. I can have a conversation with anyone, and within seconds to minutes, I'll have forgotten the entire conversation. Names, I don't do those. We're gonna have to re-meet for the first time like 5 or 6 times before a name's gonna ever be a thing for me. I know for me, if at work, for example, right, orders get passed down, if I'm being given a critical order, I have to look away and focus on the ground and really force myself to listen, because if I have a face-to-face eye contact conversation in a high-stress situation, I will drown out what they're telling me, and I will be overwhelmed with all these other issues. Okay, Dani, you gotta listen, you gotta hear them, hear everything they say. Don't mess this up, you gotta do a good job, you gotta save this person, you gotta follow this order, you gotta do a good job. And I'll distract myself so much trying to be the best firefighter that I will have missed every order that was given to me. So I have to really focus on concentration and quieting my mind so that I can accomplish whatever the objective is that I'm trying to accomplish. The growth that I've experienced throughout this PTSD journey gives me a lot of hope for the future. I'm excited to see what's gonna happen, where it's gonna go, and I know that bad things are gonna happen. more traumas are gonna come, and I'm okay with that. I'm willing to accept that. Whereas another time in my life, bad things happening were not an option, and I would plan and prepare and do everything I could to keep bad things from happening. So it's definitely a different lifestyle for me to live, and it's a necessary one. I don't want to live my life trying to survive anymore. I don't want to live my life in fear anymore. And it'll happen, right? I'll take a couple steps back. I'm gonna have bad days. I'm gonna have days where I struggle, days where I suffer, days where I'm depressed. And that's life, and that's okay. And I'm gonna get through it. Now I have tools to help me get through it. And if I don't have tools, I have forced myself to build these strong, amazing relationships with people who can support me and be there on the other side, you know, when I need them and when I'm ready. So, I'm loving it right now. Like, I'm in a good place in my life. I'm setting goals and trying new things and making mistakes, which, you know, wasn't an option at another time. And great. I love it. I love it. Yeah. I didn't know that I was struggling. I didn't know. I had some inklings, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, kind of in there, that I had a predisposition for PTSD simply from my career alone. And then add in my, you know, family history and a few other things. Like, I had this, if it's predictable, it's preventable, so let's keep it from happening mentality, right? I'm gonna read all the books and diet and exercise and get a therapist. And I've been in therapy since I was in 2nd grade. Like, we're gonna fix me before I'm broken, kind of a deal. And living it from such a young age, like, all that stuff was my normal. I didn't actually know that anything was wrong. It was just that I needed to manage it better. I needed to deal with it better. I wasn't doing good enough. And so the problem kind of crept in when everything that I was doing wasn't helping. Like, I was on this maintenance line, and then slowly, like, so slow was the decline that you couldn't hardly tell that there is even a decline. And then I plummeted. Like, it was just like, it was like I was holding the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I collapsed underneath it. Doing fine, and it's over. And the thing was right before it was over, I was having a conversation with a friend who was telling me, Dani, I'm not doing good, and if I don't get help, something bad is gonna happen. And it was the most vague conversation I have ever had, and in that moment, I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. So I called a first responder helpline, thinking that everything was from my career. That's where all my problems were, and kind of got some things in the works, right? But you know, when you call for help, usually it's kind of too late. Like, you needed help like 6 months ago, or like, you know, yesterday. And then to get help, it takes time to get there. And in that time, it was like, I don't even know, the sky started falling on my head. Like, anything that could go wrong was just going wrong. I couldn't fix anything. I couldn't manage anything. My life was a mess. I was a mess. Everything was out of control. It was I was having just like trauma after trauma. And I had that moment. I had that moment of, I have done everything I can possibly do, and I'm supposed to go to treatment tomorrow, but I just can't. I just can't. I'm freaking done. And I've never been done before. I've never had no hope. I've always had hope. Like, always, just a little bit of hope was always there. And I found myself in a moment of, why? I call it a case of the fuck-its. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but I got the fuck-its real bad, and I grabbed a knife and I started cutting myself. And I didn't want to do it wrong, so I did some practice cuts first. Like, okay, like you're gonna make yourself bleed wrong? Cool. And thank God that that's what I did. Thank God that that's how I chose to try and die, was to slowly learn how to cut myself so that I would do it right. Because after the first couple cuts, I started to feel, I didn't feel the cuts, I didn't feel pain, I didn't feel any of that, but I started to feel the present moment. I got out of the past and out of my hopeless future, and I got in the present moment of right now. And that moment I thought, I don't want to die. And I stopped, and I called friend for help, and I got my sad little butt on that airplane to treatment the next day, a trauma treatment center. And I went there with a life or death, have to get help. Like there was no option for me. I will do whatever you people want me to do. I don't care how badly it hurts. You want me to cry every day? I'll do it. I haven't cried in years, but I'll cry every day if that's what you want. On command, whatever, I'm in. Because I don't want to die. And it's so weird how everything kind of happened, the events. It's like somebody had a plan for me or something. But I learned so much, and it absolutely changed my life. And, I still struggle, and I still do the work, and I still have hope. Like, that's the thing. When I was my most hopeless and there was nothing else out there because little Miss Perfectionist, who has an answer for everything, ran out of answers. No, there was still more. So I think that's like the thing that I hold on to, that I'm gonna hold on to if and when I have another hopeless moment, is the truth, right? The shame is I'm hopeless, there is no hope. The truth is there's always hope, always. If you're struggling with PTSD or anything else, the biggest piece of advice that I can give you, like the first step, like the thing, don't stop fighting. There's always hope. Don't stop fighting. So, a couple friends of mine in the fire service and I decided to start a nonprofit organization. It's called Responders First Northwest. This organization is a first responder support group. It is open to active duty military, retired military, police officers, firefighters, emergency room personnel, 911 dispatchers. It's an amazing organization that we have created where this, diverse community of like-minded individuals can come together and share their experience, strength, and hope in regards to any of the struggles that they have come through during their lives or on the job. And it's a safe place. It is a confidential environment. You can remain as anonymous as you would like to. And the point is to shed some light on the darkness that, we in our field experience, and bring community to a life that can be pretty isolating. And we have meetings every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And normally they are housed in a little coffee shop in Marysville, but we're also doing Zoom meetings right now. So we encourage everyone to Zoom in and join us. And you can share and you can just listen, and maybe you'll find something helpful, and bring your friends, because we just want everyone to come and be a part of our community. So.